Kristen, if I can start with you, can you share a few thoughts about how a person's identity might play a role in the experiences they have as professionals? If I could kick it your way first, Kristen.
Yeah, sure. And guys, I'm sorry if my video feed is being a little bit wonky. We've had some bugs in the browser recently. Hopefully I can get it fixed. Yeah, so I have been working with diverse teams for 11 years. I've been a people leader for the last 5. And I didn't think a lot about how my identity would play into those spaces until I started managing other folks. And whether those folks were LGBT identified or women specifically, what I would find is that the conversations that we had outside of those group contexts were really different than the ones we had one-on-one. Like I remember at one point I had all my women reports on a call, and one of them said to me like, "Oh, it's just so great to work for another woman." And that seems really straightforward, but I honestly hadn't thought about it super significantly, especially being in tech, which I've always worked with a lot of male identified folks. So I think that it plays out, what I've seen, especially in coaching folks, it plays out a lot in how comfortable they are communicating to others, and how they show up in different rooms and spaces. And I think one of the specific ways that I've had to manage and coach them is helping them understand how they can bring their voice to spaces where they might not feel as traditionally comfortable, kind of growing them in spaces where they feel a little bit safer, and then giving them the backup and the support when they're in those mixed contexts.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Yeah, sorry about your video. I think it'll probably come back in a little bit, but I know
it's gonna freeze at some great moments, so we're just gonna enjoy that, I think, as we go.
We are. You've got good lighting. The freeze, it looks good. You're okay. You're okay. And Chris, I know CJ just said a couple of things that really pricked up my ears, and I think probably aligned pretty well with your experience and expertise as well. I'll go ahead and let you kind of hop in as that first response.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a person's identity hits them in a couple of different ways. At its best, we bring our full selves, all of our identities to the workforce, not just our professional identities, but our history, our national identities, ethnic identities, sexual identities. All of these things are going to play a role and provide, in its best case, just really rich insights into consumer culture. At its worst, it can be out of sync, right? Somebody comes into agency culture, they find themselves the only person in the room and having to assert their voices, and having to sometimes explain your culture to people that may not be familiar with it. Sometimes these could lead to a little bit of an awkward situation within the workforce.